This week in Jamaica Now, the RIU rapes at gunpoint. How the suspect got the hotel job although he had been wanted for 7 months on sex charges. Big gun bust in the corporate area, 26 guns seized at the ports in 24 hours. Resigned NESol boss Caroline Warren gets her day before a parliamentary committee. And PEP performance task exam pushed back until next year. I'm Damian Mitchell and this is Jamaica Now. It appears that the RIU Hotel did not do adequate background check in hiring 24-year-old Demar Scott, the entertainment coordinator now arrested for raping 2 guests at gunpoint at its Montego Bay resort last Thursday. He had been employed to RIU Reggae Hotel 2 days earlier and was still in training. But more than 7 months before, Scott was named by the Manchester police as a person of interest in connection with several rape cases. In a Facebook post on March 2, the Manchester police offered a reward of $35,000 for information on the whereabouts of Scott, who was being sought in connection with the rapes. In a statement issued on Tuesday, RIU did not address the revelation that Scott was listed as a person of interest, but it maintained that it followed a rigorous hiring protocol and that the relevant documentation was requested and received from Scott. It said the trainee presented a resume with education and experience relevant to the position, a recommendation from a justice of the peace, and a letter from an entertainment manager from another company. In the meantime, the St. Catherine Custos, the Reverend Jeffrey Mackenzie, is to launch an investigation into the actions of Neville George, the justice of the peace who wrote a recommendation for Demar Scott to be employed to RIU. On September 25 this year, George wrote a recommendation to RIU attesting to Scott's character as a reliable and suitable person to be employed. In the recommendation, George, who is a JP for the parish of St. Catherine, listed Scott's address as Ocho Rio, St. Anne. But according to the St. Catherine Custos, it is not permitted for a justice of the peace in one parish to be attesting to the character of someone in another parish. And George has defended his actions, saying he met Scott more than 7 years ago through the Citizens Associations, etc. However, he declined to name the Citizens Association, saying he did not want to implicate anyone. George told the Gleaner that he knew Scott for more than 7 years, but in the recommendation dated September 25, George said that he had known Scott for more than 2 years. The Jamaican police are engaging U.S. law enforcement authorities in connection with the discovery of 26 illegal firearms in fewer than 24 hours at the port in Kingston. The first 10 weapons, including an Uzi submachine gun, were found on Thursday in a barrel labeled as domestic items. More than 600 rounds of ammunition were also found. 2 men who had turned up to collect the barrel were arrested and 2 others held in a secondary operation. And the police say hours later they found another barrel with 16 handguns, pushing to 26 the total number of weapons seized at the Kingston port. Meanwhile, Government Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith has revealed that in a recent report, Kingston came in at number 16 on the list of 50 most violent cities last year. She did not name the report, but said the ranking cannot be acceptable. Johnson-Smith was speaking in the Senate during the debate on the extension of the state of public emergency now in place in sections of the corporate area. On September 23, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced that a state of emergency has been imposed in several communities across the Kingston West, Kingston Central, and the St. Andrews Central police divisions. Domestic disputes in 2 separate incidents have resulted in fatalities in the past 5 days. In the first incident, District Constable Melissa Edwards-White was chopped to death allegedly by her husband at their home in Doheny Park, St. Andrew. He has since turned himself in to the police. Then on Thursday morning, 39-year-old O'Neill Coleman died after he was stabbed in the neck, allegedly by his common-law wife. It is reported that the stabbing was in retaliation for an earlier incident in which Coleman used a machete to beat her. Caroline Warren, the resigned managing director of the National Energy Solutions Limited, NESol, had her day at a parliamentary committee this week. During the sitting of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, she sought to explain why the chief engineer, Anthony Brown, was removed as a signing officer.
The resolution from the board at the time was to remove Mr. Brown, Mr. Anthony Brown, to remove the personnel officer and the cost accountant. Mr. Brown was not the only person who was removed. When Mr. Brown was going on leave, I pointed out as the managing director that we would have a problem with the signing of the checks, and the board decided to add Mr. Pummels to relieve Mr. Brown.
The Education Minister has announced that there will be a delay in the administration of the Primary Exit Profile Performance Task Test. The performance task aspect will now be administered in March 2019. The adjustment follows consultations between the Dr. Garth Anderson-led Jamaica Teachers Association and the Education Ministry. The JTA has been insisting that teachers and students are not ready for PEP, which has replaced the Grade 6 Achievement Test as the secondary school placement exam. And that's it for this edition of Jamaica Now, your weekly review of the big news stories. Send us your comments at onlinefeedback@gleanerjm.com. You may tune in to Power 106 FM for regular updates. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Jamaica Gleaner and on Facebook at Gleaner Jamaica. I'm Damian Mitchell, and before we go, Friday was Pink Day in recognition of breast cancer survivors. Here's how some schools celebrated.